The title of my talk is Letting Go. Ever since I was in my mother's womb, I was introduced to living a wellness lifestyle. My mother meditates twice a day and did so when she was pregnant with me. When I was 1.5 years old, my parents, who were at the time, my dad was 30 and my mom was 28, they moved from India to Rhode Island. I was 1.5, if I didn't say that already. Growing up in Rhode Island, I grew up with 2 brothers, and I realized that equality was very important to me when I saw that my brothers were getting some more freedom than I was in our household. And I really stood up against that, and from a very young age, I made it very clear that I was going to be treated the same as my 2 brothers. So that's just setting the foundation. Also, my mother lived by this mantra of hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. So she really cultivated this mindfulness of, again, living a wellness lifestyle and truly having kind of planting the seed of our thoughts become our reality. So just being very mindful and aware. And at the age of 9, I remember having a conversation with my parents. And it was about what I was going to be when I grow up. They said, "You're going to be a doctor, right?" And at this point, I began a journal, which I have to this day, and it's over 3,000 pages. I like to write. Being a doctor at the age of 9 didn't sound very appealing to me, so I said, no, I don't want to be a doctor. And then they said, "Well, you're going to marry a doctor, right?" And I was sure of the answer. I mean, then, being 9, I said no. I said, "I'm going to marry a poet." And it's because I said, and they said, "Why?" They were a little confused. And I said, "Because I want the person that I marry to be married to me, not to their profession. And also I want him to write poems." And so that was that. That's how the conversation went. A few years later, as a teenager, we had another conversation where the topic of love came up again. And this time they said to me, "You're going to marry someone Indian, right?" And I thought, okay, I grew up in Rhode Island. So it troubled me that they wanted so badly for me to marry someone Indian, but that's not what I was relating to. I was just relating to, I don't know, certain qualities in a person, like being a poet. And this kind of, what I've said so far kind of set the dichotomy that has occurred in my life. There's a dichotomy between career, where when I told my parents I didn't want to be a doctor, they were okay with that. And love. When I told my parents I didn't want to be with someone Indian, it troubled them, which really troubled me. I loved them very much. And again, they were a big influence in my life. And I was very blessed to grow up with a lot of love. At the age of 20, I went backpacking through Southeast Asia, through Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand. And on the first day of the trip, I meet the man that is going to be my first love. He's got these gorgeous big blue eyes, and if you haven't figured it out yet, he's not Indian. He's British. And we travel through all these countries together, and it's beautiful. It's like the love that I'd always dreamed of. And though he wasn't a poet, he wrote poems. He was a scientist, actually. At the end of the trip, I had to return to Boston to finish my last year at Boston University. And he had to go back to England so he could begin his PhD at Cambridge. We continued our romance. It was amazing. It was the most beautiful love letters being written every day, amazing trips happening. And then when I graduated, I moved to England. But things started troubling me because at this point, I'm living there and it's great, except I haven't told my family about him. Yeah. And I don't know how, because for me, I didn't want to tell them and hate them for the rest of my life, because I, at that point, felt like they weren't going to be okay with this. So he proposes, and I have a breakdown. I leave. I break his heart, and I break mine. I develop a guilt. And I carry this guilt with me for 13 years. So mind you, I was 20 when that happened. This past October 2013, I've just turned 33, I write him a letter. And I just get everything out that has been festering within me. So in the past 13 years, there have been several other relationships, but this guilt has been turning darker and eating away at me and not allowing me to fully express love like I did in that first relationship. So I apologize for breaking his heart, for breaking my own, and in essence, I'm also letting go, which in essence means I'm forgiving myself. Finally, when I wrote this letter, I go through a whole box of tissues to write it. I mean, I'm really feeling the layers of guilt and darkness peeling away. And it is very freeing. It's not so much the result. I'm not necessarily looking, to be with him. If anything, I hope that he's happy. And now I know some of you might be wondering, well, what did he write? So I write this letter, and he writes back, and he is happy, and he's married, and it's fine, and he's wishing me well. And the point is not his response. It's more, again, the forgiveness of myself, and now being at a point where I can once again be so free-hearted and ready to love again.